everybody, this is PA in the AM coming to you from Carlsbad, California. And today I have the privilege to interview an author who published a children's book. Her name is Taryn Palacios. And I've been a physician assistant for the last 10 years. And I'm here to talk with inspiring women of faith to talk more about their road and their journey to where they are today. So Taryn is a published author of a children's Christian book entitled Our Purpose. She holds a master's in education and has over 25 years of experience in public school systems. As both a teacher and an administrator and a principal, she is the founder of a Christian website called lovingwithallmyheartandsoul.com and is a host to her podcast her podcast show, Walking with Faith. Her mission with these two platforms is to help Catholic women build and nurture their relationship with God and truly understand their Catholic faith. So Taryn, thanks so much for letting me interview you today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So what made you want to be a writer/podcaster?
You know, I don't know that I ever set out to be either one. I remember years ago in a staff development class as a teacher that I went to, there was an author that was presenting, and the idea kind of entered my mind for the first time, thinking, you know, it would be pretty cool to write a book. But that was it. Like, I just remember that one thought about becoming an author or writing a book, and it was years ago. The way it actually happened was totally unexpected. My mom passed away from cancer.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And thank you. And I moved back because we had moved away. I went to go take care of her. And when I moved back, there wasn't an administrator position, which is what I was doing the last 13 years. So I took a job as a classroom teacher, and it kind of worked out for me. I just wanted to shield myself from the world and go into my own little room, you know. And it was Valentine's Day. And I had the students writing letters to, you know, their loved ones. And I sat at my desk and I started writing to my husband, and to my daughter, and to my son, and to their godparents. And every period I wrote, when I was done, something just, I don't know, I can't explain it. It's so hard to explain, but I turned the page and I just started writing a story. And it just kept coming, you know, every period I would just add to it. And I can't even say where it came from. It wasn't something that I had even thought of. There was no pre-thinking about it. And so I got stuck on the ending. I went to lunch, continued the next couple of periods. And then all of a sudden it was just like given to me. And I always credit God. Like, God gave me that story. He gave me the ending. I think I was just maybe vulnerable and allowed myself to, you know, for him to work through me. But I remember really thinking that it was a good story. And I came home and I showed it to my daughter. And my daughter's an avid reader and writer. I mean, she's very talented. And she read it, and it was just something about her look in her face that talked to me, that called me. You know, she says, "Mom, this is really good. Like, you need to publish it." And when she said that, I thought, you know what? Because it's about God and it's God's message. And I just feel like it's so important. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to look into that. And it took off from there. Like, the next day after work, I came home and I kind of Googled, how do you publish a book? And, you know, certain publishing companies came out, and I filled out a little questionnaire for one, and they called me back, and it happened to be Westbow Press, which is a Christian publishing company. And I prayed about it. That was the
first one that came up when you Googled? Published?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, it was that one and some other ones, but that's the one that I really looked into because it was a Christian based. And I just felt like they would know more, you know, about the direction of the book. And so they called me and I prayed about it. And it seems like every time I prayed, between like 2 either two publishers or two illustrators, or, I always took it to God. I always took it to him and just prayed about it and asked him, like, God, I don't know what I'm doing. I just feel it in my heart that you want this published, help me choose who I'm supposed to choose. And there was always one that would stick out. And so I just went with it. And I find that the more I listen to that little voice, which I call, the Holy Spirit, the better things always turn out.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's been situations where I don't listen to it because that's not really what I want, and it just hasn't turned out as well.
Yeah.
But that's really where the book came from. It was on Valentine's Day.
Wow.
Yes. Well, and it's interesting because about a year or two before writing the book, I was really, I moved to Corpus Christi, Texas, and it was the first time that I wasn't going to work in like 20 years, which was awesome,
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, what am I going to do with my time? So I joined a Bible study for women. Well, through that Bible study, there was a section about finding our purpose. And so I prayed about it and I thought, well, what is my purpose? Like, I know that, I've been an administrator, I've been a teacher, I love kids. I know the good that I've done with families and with children. But through that Bible study class, it was revealed to me by the Holy Spirit that I was to talk to children about God, as clear as day.
Wow.
And the way that this was, given to me is when I was praying about it, something made me think of my journal. And a good friend of mine told me about journaling and journaling to God, just putting it all out there. So I had been doing that. Well, when I'm asking God about my purpose, just this idea, like, get your journal. And so I grabbed my journal, and as soon as I opened it, it was an entry that I had written in 2010 about a dream that I had that I was talking to students about God. And so when I got this journal and I opened it to that page, it was like a revelation to me that I'm supposed to talk to children about God, or students about God.
Wow.
And so that's kind of where it left off. I thought, okay, well, I don't know how I'm going to do that in a public school. I mean, I kind of do, where I can. But I just knew that I was supposed to talk about God to children. And so then my mom got sick, and then I came back, and then this book just comes to be. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how does that happen? Like, that's my purpose. I'm supposed to, it's a children's book. I'm talking to children about God. Like, he's just so good. It's crazy. We have plans for ourselves, and he just makes other plans that are wonderful. But yeah. So from that book, because you asked about my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So after I wrote the book, it was like, all right, well, how do you put your book out there? How do you market your book? And you can pay thousands of dollars for a marketer, but I was looking at, okay, how can I? And so I started looking into, like, oh, well, most authors build a website. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to build a website, not knowing anything about anything. So, I started all of that studying, and I created my website. Well, my website, thought, well, what am I going to talk about? And I thought, I'm going to talk to Catholic moms, because in a school setting, I have seen year after year it getting worse and worse with our young students. Unfortunately, I was at a high school, and we had 2 suicides in 1 year.
Oh my gosh.
2 boys, one in Christmas time and one in Easter time. And it was just so difficult for me to comprehend. And every year my school district has at least 1 suicide. We have 5 high schools. And I've seen kids, not knowing God, like not knowing anything. They don't go to church. Their parents don't go to church. There's more, cutting. There's more, of course, the suicides. And it just, I felt like something needs to be done. Like, parents cannot stop teaching about God. Parents cannot stop going to church and get further and further away from God, and it's in the Bible. We need to bring up our children knowing him.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I started my website. I thought, I'm a Catholic. I was brought up Catholic. And I have a lot of trouble explaining a lot of Catholic practices. So when my kids were growing up, it's like, well, why do we do that with the holy water? And I thought, oh my gosh, like really, what's a good explanation?
Yeah.
And why do we confess to priests? And why do we believe the blood and, soul and divinity is really in that little host? And so I thought, you know what? If I was brought up Catholic and I don't know, I'm sure I was taught this in CCD and probably learned it, but then just forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the more I did my own research to kind of relearn that, I thought there's other moms like me. I know there are. And so now that's what my website's about. It's kind of reteaching, relearning our Catholic practices. And from there, I have a lot of friends that they're not readers. I have truck driving friends, and I thought, I want to reach them too. So if they're truck driving and traveling 10 hours,
Mm-hmm.
they could be listening to a podcast, get the same information that I'm writing about. And so that's what I do. I kind of repurpose my blog posts into a podcast. And this way I'm getting more people, not just my readers, but my listeners.
Oh, great. And what do you enjoy most about, I know you're still working as well, but for your side gig, what do you enjoy most about podcasting?
It's nice now that I'm really getting into interviewing. It's nice to hear other people's take on different topics and just to hear how God is working and how God works through people and in people is just beautiful. It's just a testament to others that are listening.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I look at my analytics, it blows my mind that I have listeners, like I have like 200 listeners in Russia.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And then I'll have like in Denmark, I have like 3, which one of them might be I'm sure is my niece because she lives in Denmark right now. She's studying. But, and a couple, in, I want to say, was it Africa? Like, it's just like
Wow.
you can impact people worldwide and you don't even know who's listening to your message.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, I know that being a podcaster, a blogger, a vlogger, whatever you want to call it, when people start reaching out to you from other countries and you realize that you have a world presence. You're not just in Texas. I don't think I mentioned that. You have 2 kids, you live in Texas, but
Yes.
you are, I live in California. We're hundreds of miles away from you. And I feel, even though we've never met in person, like I feel so close to you compared to like some of my colleagues that I've known for years, and it's like when you have that faith connection and you can literally have a relationship with someone across the globe and to know that we can ask each other to pray for each other. Like, my cousin has breast cancer, so I could easily message you or message my Catholic Working Moms group of 9,000 moms from all over the world and know that they're praying for me, and that a prayer here, whether it's, for COVID-19, for our patients that are really ill, versus in India, where I know a doctor that is dealing with hundreds and thousands of patients that are dying in parking lots because there's no beds for them in a hospital. It's like, we can pray for them. We can pray for us, our families, and that connection that God is connecting all of us is the most important thing.
Yes, absolutely. Prayer. And the more people praying the same thing, the better.
And when you're not podcasting, being an author, being a mom, cooking, cleaning, doing a million other things, what do you like to do for fun?
Right now, I think that is my fun. The other thing I started doing was when I was, I guess, elementary all the way to high school, I was a baton twirler.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, when I lost my mom, you go back and you start thinking of all the things when you were growing up. And I thought, I loved twirling. Like, why don't I do that anymore? So what So what I started doing was I did make a couple of YouTube videos twirling because I thought, what can I do to give back to the community? And so I started offering free online twirling classes.
Wow.
So yeah, so I have that, and I added it to my website as well under the like charitable acts. And so that's what I do. I twirl and I make videos and teach others how to twirl.
Yes. My sister-in-law and my mother-in-law are both baton twirlers.
Wow.
Yes. And like this is back in high school, but I was in the marching band. And so our baton twirler, there was only one for all 4 years I was in high school, but I've been trying to get back into playing the clarinet. And like, that's such a great way to give back, to like teach online. Like, this is how you play the clarinet. I'm sure people have thousands of videos out there, but that would be fun. And that's a hobby, and like to get back into it. And it's good exercise.
Yes.
That's
And
neat.
and actually I'm right now in the process of starting a nonprofit organization. So I've hired a lawyer and we're doing all the paperwork, and so I want to have a nonprofit organization, and it's to teach little girls to twirl, or
Oh,
boys.
really?
And so I want to teach them to twirl so that they can go perform, hopefully after all this COVID, at nursing homes or in hospitals, or just giving back to their community. And it's kind of helping them know to feel valued and that they have a purpose.
So I have one last question. If you could give someone one piece of advice that's an author, what would you give them?
Well, first of all, I would definitely let them know, if this is in your heart to do it, you just need to start. Because I know that so many people say, oh, I want to write a book, and I want to write a book. I've always wanted to write a book. You just got to start, because if you don't start, it's never going to happen. And I think if you just commit yourself and even write out maybe, how long you're going to spend every day. I'm just going to write 15 minutes, or I'm going to, write a chapter, or and you're not editing, you're just writing, writing, writing. That would be my first piece of advice, is just start. Another thing is, once the book is all done, is where the hard part starts. And I know most people think, oh, writing is the most difficult part, but it's really after. It's trying to get your book out there and promoting and marketing. Now, unless you have a lot of money and you're going to, hire somebody to market it, you've got to move your book yourself. So what I did was I went to the Barnes and Nobles around my area, and I just pitched, I said, I just wrote this book. I'm a local author, and I would love to come and do a reading for you. And one gave me a bunch of paperwork to fill out. I had to tie in with a nonprofit organization before they would even think about it. And then the other one, the manager actually reached out to me and asked me, what day I wanted. They made the flyers for me, free
Wow.
of charge. I mean, colored flyers, which don't run cheap. They
Yeah.
had me pick them up, send them out. They gave me advice. You want to make a big poster, meet the author. You want professional pictures, and just market wherever you work at. Like I told my principal at that time, and then I told the PR person for our school district. Well, they blew it up. They
Wow.
put it on the newspaper twice. I got featured in 2 different channels, TV stations. And so sometimes, you could, in unexpected places, get free publications. So definitely, I think that would be a big point to consider, is how are you going to market? Word of mouth is good. And once you sell to your friends and your family, how else are you going to market it? And so
Yeah.
again, that's where I started with my website as well. So
Do you by chance have a
I
copy
plan.
of the book to show to everybody what it looks like?
Yes. I actually plan to go in and go to, it's good for bereavement.
Mhm.
So taking some to maybe St. Jude's. I want to go take some to hospice places, and reaching out to the Christian schools. I want to go and talk. And I was supposed to do that this summer, but now with this COVID, but go talk to principals and, just leave them a copy. And if they want to order more, or I can pick up orders or just work it. Like, you've got to work it.
I really, really appreciate you meeting with us. And if you, Taryn, if you can say the best place for us to contact you, your website, and again, the name of your podcast.
Yes, my podcast is Walking with Faith. And you probably, sometimes I'll put Walking with Faith Taryn, and that's Taryn. And my website is lovingwithallmyheartandsoul.com.
Oh, great.
And then Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, it's basically the same thing, Taryn Palacios, or Loving with All My Heart and Soul. Either one will get you there.
And I know that you have a really busy schedule, and I really appreciate you making the time to let me interview you today. It was such a pleasure. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So if you, like Taryn said, www.lovingwithallmyheartandsoul.com. And then her book, can you show it to us one more time?
Yes. It's called
Our Purpose.
Our Purpose. Mm-hmm.
And I love, if you can flip through it, I love the watercolors.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And if they want to purchase the book, is that on your website as well?
Yes. And you can find it Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
Could they request a signed copy from you, like I requested?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So they could just contact you on your website, and then you could send them a signed copy. And I have a couple other friends that have published books, and every time there's a birthday, a baptism, communion, anything, I always send them a signed book from one of my friends, because it's so personal. And you can even ask them, congratulations on your confirmation. I'm sure you're willing to write a personal letter. So that's so great.
I would love to. Yes.
Great. And so,
because I just feel like, God wants this message out, and he's going to put the right people, the people that he wants, to get the book. And, I don't know if you all have, but we have, in parks, we have these random little libraries where you can drop a book in there. Yeah. And so I just want to drop them in randomly, because I know that God's going to direct the person that needs that book.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea. That I'm so glad you said that. My sister is part of Little Free Libraries in Northern California. They've made probably about 50 Little Free Libraries all throughout Northern California. And so I love that idea. And I'm going to talk to my other girlfriend that has children's books as well. And putting them in Little Free Libraries, you're evangelizing kids in your neighborhood. And kids in neighborhoods all over. And there's Little Free Libraries everywhere. I think there's a website for Little Free Libraries, and you could find the locations. And so I don't know if they have one for tech. I'm sure they do. I mean, it's a national organization, but I am going to start buying up your books and just leaving them all over the place. But I love having signed copies, because it just shows this is the author, the author wants to evangelize all of the neighbors,
and when I had the book signing, it was all these little children were around me, and I felt overwhelmed. I felt like, God, this is exactly this little boy is going to go home and read this, and he's going to hear about you, and this little girl is going to know about you. And it was just so overwhelming. I love just knowing that.
I can't wait to read your book. So again, look up Taryn Palacios, and tune in next Friday to PA in the AM. I'm going to be interviewing another Wonder Woman. So if you guys can please subscribe below. This is PA in the AM signing off. Take care.